Welcome to the Strong, Single and Human podcast, a real look at single parenting, how to navigate the ups and downs of life with kids on your own while keeping sane. We cover all manner of subjects from domestic violence, dealing with childhood trauma, through to fussy eaters and how to help your kids become resilient. I'm your host, Claire Martin. Welcome. This week's podcast guest, Diane Windsor, has been a single mum twice and has been through 2 divorces. And she has been in marriage counselling more years than she has been married. She is passionate about helping mothers, especially single mothers, tell their stories. She was a leader of a single parent support group for 8 years until COVID, and during her journey has become an accomplished author. Her works focus on topics that are important to single moms. Diane has published the following books: Stuck, Smokescreen, and How to Relationship, a relationship guide for teens with divorced parents. This is the Strong, Single and Human podcast. Hi, Diana. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome back again.
Hi, Claire. It's so nice to see you again and to talk to you.
So nice to have you back. So look, just in case people haven't listened to the last podcast, and listeners, if you haven't, come on, go back and listen to it. Can you just give us a brief synopsis about like who you are and your journey up till this point?
Yes, of course. Well, I am an author and a publisher in the Dallas, Texas area, USA. And I started my publishing company and writing some books specifically to help single parents, because I was a single parent for a long time. I was married twice and divorced twice, and I'm on my 3rd marriage now. 3rd time's a charm.
Third time lucky.
Right. That's right. But I also spent time leading a single parent support group here in my area for about 8 years. It was the largest one in the area, and we would meet on a monthly basis. We tried doing some virtual things, but it really was more fun for us to get together. And sometimes we would socialize, and sometimes we would also like have informational sessions. Like we would talk about finances for single parents and legal issues. I would have attorneys come in and talk to the parents, and they would answer questions for free. And that was really helpful because, anything that has to do with the legal system for single parents, it's so expensive and it's just very difficult to navigate. So
I don't know how some separated parents actually can go to court and deal with all of the complexity of court and the cost of it, right? Because sometimes it can cost over here, it can cost $50,000, $60,000, $70,000.
Yes, thousands of dollars.
It's
exactly.
amazing.
I know.
And what single parent has that?
Yeah, I tried to do a few things by myself because I had heard that it's like, well, you can fill out the paperwork and go before the judge and take care of it yourself. And I'm always, up for trying something like that if it's going to save me some money.
Me too.
And I was able to do a few of those things, but my situation was not very complicated, so it was all right. But I really enjoyed running that single parent support group. But then when COVID hit, the parent organization kind of shut down because obviously nobody was getting together in person anymore, and they could not sustain it. So but I still do try to help single parents if I can by writing some books that hopefully are helpful to them.
Well, exactly. And one of them that we're going to cover off and sort of discuss is how a relationship guide for teenagers with divorced parents, because statistically children from divorced parents are likely to go through a divorce themselves.
That's right.
And here in Australia, 30% of first-time marriages basically end in divorce.
Right.
And 60%, you'd think you'd get it right the second time.
I know.
Right? But 60% of people who marry for a second time end in divorce as well, right?
Right. I think we have similar statistics here in the States.
I don't know how many the third time round is, Diana,
I know.
like maybe there's none the third time round because third time lucky and you get it right. But like,
that's right.
And so therefore the view is like that because children come from divorced parents, right? They haven't got very good role model, well, not very good role models, but they like have complex situations that they come from, and therefore seeing how families work, you know, partners, relationships, partners work together,
working
to
together,
resolve issues.
Yep.
Isn't really happening.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So those are some of the topics, some of the issues that I did try to address.
So how do we teach them to have healthy relationships then?
Yeah.
If
that's
we
a
haven't.
good question. Right. I tried to learn from my mistakes. So that's what I wrote about. I have like chapters in here are, you know, not rushing in, because like for me, I rushed in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Both of my first two marriages, I thought, yes, this is right. We need to, you know, move ahead and get married, and that's it. Then everything's going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't, and I should have learned. However, there we go. Like in my relationships, like they were normally a couple of years, like I was in it for a couple of years. So you'd think
before
I'd
you
have
got
a clue.
married.
Yeah. So you think I'd have a clue. But
yeah.
But I have to say, the actual act of getting married changed the situation. It was very
I've heard
bizarre.
that before. I've heard a lot of stories where couples would live together without being married, and everything was great. But then as soon as they, you know, made it legal, made it official, then things just went to hell for whatever reason. Yeah.
And so I did that in my 20s, and it all went to hell in a handbag.
Yeah.
And then I've sort of gone, right, well, no, marriage is definitely not for me. I'm happy to live in sin.
There you go.
But
and I do think, you know, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. If that is what works for you, even long term, that's no problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I think I give up too much, and I don't. Well, I do. I don't do it now, but I give up too much in the relationship or for the relationship, and I didn't set effective boundaries regarding
that's so
me.
Important.
Right?
That's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I mean, crikey, I'm a Libra, right? So we're in love with love, right? We love and being in love and all of the things that are associated with it, right? So that's probably, I just blame my star sign. There's nothing in that. But, you know, hey, I just want to blame something else. Let's take the victim and put it over to somewhere else. But
it's not your responsibility.
Yeah. But I think if I look back at everything, I didn't set boundaries, and I didn't respect maybe me in the relationship with that person.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. And so, look, at the end of the day, these are all things that I'm learning, but I wish I'd learned it like maybe 20 years ago.
Exactly. So like for one thing, I remember being very upset with my second husband because he wasn't helping enough around the house and I was doing everything. And that was certainly true. But now, I mean, if I do a little extra, you know, if the trash is full and I see that the trash is full and I take it outside to the bin, I'm not going to get all upset because I had to do it and my husband didn't do it. You know, it's like, oh, okay, I'll do it. We just see what needs doing and we do it. And we're both kind of that way now. And so while of course it's important for partners to help each other, it's not about keeping score, right? I used to keep score, and that doesn't help anything. Yeah.
No. And as a single mum, I'm sitting here, and because I've got a boy, right? So as a single mum, as a mum, I do a lot of things for my boy. So I've now sat here and gone, well, hang on a minute. I'm not going to clear up after him. Yeah.
Right.
He can do that. He can, you know, he gets undressed in the lounge, of all places, but he gets undressed in the lounge and leaves his clothes in there. So they get left in there or they get put somewhere.
Sure.
so that he has to ask for them. Right.
Yeah.
So I go,
That's
well,
good.
where are they? Are they not in the place that you would expect them to be? Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, then you need to take responsibility for doing that, putting his dishes in the dishwasher, things like that. Because I sit here and go, if I do all of these, I'm actually creating the monster for his partner going forward.
Partner, exactly.
So I'm like, no. So,
Right.
and I'm getting him to cook a bit and various different things
Good.
like that.
At 7, he can start doing some of those things. And I remember I taught my children how to do their own laundry when they were fairly young. I don't think as young as 7, but 10, 11, 12. It was time for them to do their own laundry because I was a working single mother. And
Exactly.
did I have time to do everybody's freaking laundry? No. So it's like, if you guys need clean clothes,
go do it.
Go ahead and do your laundry.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
And I've got to say, like, he goes, well, I don't want to do it. And I went, well, I want to do it. Like,
Right.
I don't want to do it, mate.
I don't either.
It's not like, it's not where I go, whoop, whoop, I'm going to clear up after you.
That's
like,
right.
no.
That's
so,
right.
yeah. And I say, sometimes you have to do the things that you don't want to do.
And we do want to, I mean, as a mother in her heart, we want to do everything for our kids, don't we?
Well, maybe. Maybe. I'm like, sometimes I'm sick of doing it. Or I'll walk through, I'll have someone turn up. I'll have someone turn up for coffee and I'll walk through and I go, oh, that'll be Oscar's pajamas everywhere in the lounge or whatever. Because he doesn't just take them off and fold them neatly and put them in a pile. No. They're flung over one sofa and then flung somewhere in the corner of the room. And, it's just.
I remember those days.
God, what is it with boys and flinging their clothes everywhere?
They do that.
Nuts. But yeah. No, it's crazy. So, like, how do we talk to them? How do we talk to our teens, right? Because talking to teens is horrendous. But is it baby steps from when they're at a young age? Like, is it at now that we need to be starting to talk through?
Probably, and it's not in your face. It's not saying this is what you need to do if you want to have successful relationships. It's maybe asking them questions like, oh, do you think somebody should talk to their partner like that? Or, oh, who should do the laundry, when you're married or living with a partner or something like that. It just, I don't know, just start having little conversations like that. But I do want to mention, I have a chapter in my book about red flags because I was famous for ignoring the red flags. You know how we do, like you said, early on in the relationship, we're so in love with love and this new person can do no wrong. And if a little flag pops up, we just tend to ignore it. I know I did. There were so many red flags.
I did. I did. Definitely.
Looking back, I'm like, oh my God, why? Seeing that, why did I move forward? Why didn't I just run for the hills screaming?
It's quite amazing because there were some relationships where I looked and there were so many red flags, right? That I would go, oh my God, like, why did I stay for so long?
Right.
And then there were other relationships where I was so not tolerant and I was just like, nah, sorry. And I was off, right? And so I go, and it's really looking at those and dissecting, like, why did I stay with that one and why, what were the reasons why and all of that stuff. Yeah. It is.
And when your emotions are so involved, of course, it's hard to look at these kind of things objectively. And I understand that, but we should try. We should try to teach our kids to, be aware of. Well,
if you're not comfortable, right? If you go, oh, hang on a minute, that's hurting me, that's upsetting me, I just don't feel comfortable. I once saw. Dearie me, confessions time. I once saw a guy who would phone me every day, right? Absolutely every day, but then would only arrange to see me like once a week, which wasn't wasn't too bad and wasn't like full on. But at the beginning, it was a real like relaxed, chilled out relationship. So it was
Mm-hmm.
not really a relationship as such. But getting on for like almost 10 months, 11 months, I'm going, wow,
Mm-hmm.
this is just a bit strange. It
Yeah.
didn't sit right with me because I was going, well,
Right.
what is this relationship?
Right.
Because you need to phone me every day, but you don't need to see me every day. Or, you know, it
Mm-hmm.
was like, yeah, it was very weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one, I finished
And
that one.
honestly, that kind of arrangement or situation might be okay for somebody else, but it wasn't
Yeah.
for you. So
Yeah. It just
yeah.
felt as though when I needed the person, they weren't there for me, but it was
Yes.
almost like I was there for them.
Yes.
I'm too
Oh,
available for them.
yep. I've been there
Um,
too.
yeah. But like, but I was telling myself I wasn't being too available. That's
Yeah.
very bizarre, the conversations you have.
Yeah.
Anyway, there we go. Confession time already on this podcast. My God. But yeah, so red flags then. How do you how do you highlight to your teenage children what red flags are without them thinking, oh, you just hate my partner?
No, I think,
And without being involved in their relationship.
yeah, that's a good point. Well, to a point, parents can be and should be, right? Involved.
But you
But
can't like ban your kid from seeing someone, right? Because that'll just make it's like, oh, that would be just like honey to the bees, right? I mean, you know, it's just like
yes,
it's that forbidden love that is in all the
absolutely.
movies and all the songs and all of this stuff
Yes.
where it's a
Yes.
forbidden love and it's,
Yeah.
you know, just so delectable.
I think maybe like if you say you and your child are watching a movie or you're out together or something, um, and you just see somebody behaving in a way that that is not acceptable. It might not be full on horrible, but like, I'm sure you've heard people who are rude to waiters and waitresses. You don't want to be with somebody like that because if they think they're better than somebody else and they talk down to people like that, then that isn't okay. So,
And
I
what are they
mean,
going to do to you?
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So just, I think that in everyday life there are opportunities to find those kind of teachable moments, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Um, yes, no. I suppose but it's like Oscar is 7, so it's really about educating them from now, really. It's not waiting until they're a teenager and then go, oh, by the way,
Sure.
relationships are
Sure.
really complex and you need to do
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It's really about like training them now. And it is training them to a certain extent.
Sure it is.
Or
Sure it is. But he also sees you. It's also, I've heard the term before, more is caught than taught. So your kids will notice your behavior more. And it's like, what is acceptable to you? If you were talking to somebody, even if it's not a relationship or a romantic relationship, there are all kinds of relationships, right?
well, that's
Professional,
true.
friendships, like, service providers who come to your home. And it's like, how do you interact with these people? Are you respectful? Are they respectful to you? Do you do you expect to be treated in a certain way? And if you're not, do you do something about it? So I think all of that is training our kids to be to behave in a certain way and expect to be treated in a certain way.
And I must admit, it is a worry for me as a single parent because I haven't dated for, God, 4 years or whatever. And I'm not really that bothered. I'm like,
Yeah,
whatever the world throws at me is fine. Happy days.
sure.
I don't want to go out and find it, right? So it's concerning for me because I go, well, it's just me and him, right? So that's a
Hmm.
real he's then not dealing with other dynamics within the situation as well and having to deal with another person
Right.
within that situation. So yeah, that's well, it's a concern for me. But
I
yeah.
get that it's a concern, but
Because it's almost like
single,
he would lose his mum, right? So, and it's very much at the forefront of my
sure.
mind. But then also he's got somebody else coming on board that would be not living with as such, but be giving him feedback within his life, right? And so if he's being out of order, he normally gets that feedback from me. So then if he gets somebody else within his life that's then giving him, and feedback's the only word I can think of to describe it really, then there's the challenge of that as well.
Yes, there's definitely a challenge of bringing somebody else in. But I think, the single mother situation these days, I know that there are single father families out there too, but I still believe, I still do think though that it's more common, and that there are more, if you got a single parent led family, it's usually going to be the mom. Don't you think?
I think the emphasis more, and I'll get slated by some of my mates who are single dads and look after their kids full time, but I think it's more around the single mum looking after the children full time and the dad's having them on the weekend.
Yeah.
Than it is around the dad's
the other way
having
around,
them full time, right? As such. Yeah. Although I have a couple of mates who are men who have their kids full time.
And so, I spoke to a friend of mine that I went to high school with, a woman, and we just happened to connect, and we were talking on the phone this last week, and her ex-husband is the custodial parent. So he's got custody of the daughter, and she sees the daughter, on a schedule. I don't think that means that she's a bad mother.
How do you get
it's
a
just
relationship
how it worked
like
out.
that?
I know. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I have Oscar 24/7. So and it's great. Yeah. And there are times where I do sit there and go, oh my God,
I need a break.
We need a break. Yeah, we do. I mean, I wouldn't be, and that's a human part of this podcast, right? Sure. I wouldn't be human if I didn't need that. But I'm so lucky with the network of people I have around me, and basically, and so I do get my breaks, thank God. Thank you, neighbours. Thank you, friends. But it's full on, really. It must be.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I have a whole chapter about respect, about treating each other with respect. And what does that look like? Because I remember in my second marriage, I had this conversation with my ex-husband once. I'm like, you don't respect me. You don't treat me with respect at all. And he just kind of blew it off, like what I was talking about was not important. So prime example right there. But that's
prime red flag, people. Prime red flag.
I know.
Yes. No, it's even the relationships that I was in for a long time. Oh my gosh, this is Diana, stop doing this to me. Even the relationships that I thought were good relationships, there were times where I was just like, I was made out to be the crazy one. I'm like, I don't think I'm crazy. I just
gaslighting.
Yeah.
I never heard that term until recently, but I went through that too.
But even even the relationships that I would sit within, and other people external to the relationship would go, oh, it's, he's a great guy. He's like, so, easy to get on with, blah, 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 and all of this stuff.
What's wrong with you? Why isn't he good enough for you? Right.
Yeah. And I'm like, no. It's very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. So, okay. Are there any markers? Do you have are there markers that we can look at to a healthy relationship? How do you recognize that you're in a healthy relationship? Is there a healthy
for
relationship?
Yourself?
Yeah.
Right.
I sit there and go, it just seems like all relationships are unhealthy, but it just might be that I've just been in all unhealthy relationships. And maybe that's why I've not been looking for one for 4 years, because I go, the healthiest relationship is with me, right?
With you. There you go. That's good. I don't know. I just think I still think that respect is so important. If you feel like you are respected by your partner, and we all go through stuff, right? We all every couple will fight. Every couple will go through hard times, but it's, how you get through those hard times together. And when it's a fight, it's like, oh my gosh, how bad is it? Hopefully it doesn't get physical. Then there's a real problem, right? But I mean, in my opinion, I've always believed this, that, most disagreements or arguments, if both parties are willing to just really listen to each other and try to understand each other's opinion, you can probably resolve it pretty quickly. And I do think that it's certainly possible to listen to and understand another person's opinion, even if you don't agree with it. It's like, okay, I hear you. I get why you thought that. And I wouldn't have done that in that situation, or I don't agree with you, but that doesn't mean that, I'm just right and you're just wrong. So I do think that it's possible to resolve things pretty quickly in most situations.
Well, it's building that understanding, isn't it? It's actually having that discussion.
Yeah.
And understanding the context of where the other person was and what that person was going through and feeling.
Yes.
And like, I hate to say, like, we should all take responsibilities for our own emotions, right? Because we fail the way we do because of our experiences, because of our trauma, whatever else it is, right?
Yes, I've had people say that to me before though too, but if somebody's being a dick, then that can still happen, right? I mean,
but you
that's
choose,
not my fault.
No, I completely agree. But you choose whether you get angry, upset, whether you deal with that situation, you take a deep breath, you step back and go, okay, you're being a dick. Yeah. How do I take action against that, right? So you can leave the situation. Right. You can, I tend to be a negotiator and try and actually try and come to some solution on stuff.
Yeah.
Which sometimes you just can't. Walk away. You just
exactly.
Can't.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating. I find it extremely frustrating that somebody can't see my point of view. But that's my own childhood hang-ups, I think.
Sure.
But yeah, no, that's yeah. Can you learn the skills to nurture a healthy relationship?
Oh, I think so. Absolutely. I think I'm better now than I was, when I was in my 20s.
But do both people have to? Can you just learn it as an individual, and can you teach it to your children, or because some, like, I don't know, some people get involved in these toxic relationships. So is it that there's something missing in them?
Probably.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's one of these toxic relationships. Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very complicated question. I don't know the answer to that.
Because my biggest dread is that my son will actually get involved in a toxic relationship and be attracted to somebody that isn't very good for them. Yeah. Right. And then it's like I have been, right, throughout my life.
That happened with my daughter.
Oh, wow.
She was in a very bad relationship for a few years. And she had some other stuff going on too. And I didn't know about it until afterwards.
You didn't know the relationship was bad till afterwards?
Correct.
It's amazing.
And she did not.
We do hide these things.
This man was abusive to her, and she did not tell me about it.
But she knew and recognized that he was abusive?
She did, and she didn't. She kind of thought she deserved it.
Oh, wow.
She was very depressed at the time too.
Wow,
and
poor girl.
There was a lot going on with her father. He was very sick with cancer. And there was a lot going on, poor thing. So after the relationship ended, she did get help for her mental health, which is so important.
I agree with you.
Mental health care and mental health treatment should not have the stigma that it does have today.
No, and I'm hoping it's being
just
removed.
As important.
I
hope so too.
With everyone talking about all of the different things that they've got as such.
Yep. Yeah. So she had depression she was dealing with, and anxiety, and I mean, she really needs medication in order to, be a happy, healthy, productive individual. Um, but I mean, honestly, she never saw me being physically abused by a partner, and that happened to her. So we can't control all of these outcomes, of
No,
course,
you're not.
right?
You're right. You're
I
right. We
mean,
just have to educate our children to
as well as we
recognize some
can.
of the different
Right.
aspects
Right.
of,
Right.
and also like we can all, and also I think it's a little bit hereditary, right? It gets, these different traits get
Y-
passed
y-
down from
Yeah,
like
sure.
grandparent to parent to, to child, etc., etc.
Sure.
So it is actually about doing the work on yourself and then trying to break that cycle, I think.
Because in our parents' and grandparents' generations, they didn't have the
God, no.
resources that we have now. They didn't talk about, I mean, I've heard these, questions. Like you'll see a thing scrolling across Facebook. It says, why don't marriages last today like they did when our grandparents were married? It's like, well, because women are not as oppressed as
There's no
they were
stigma
back
around
then.
divorce.
That's right. There's no stigma around divorce. I can go out and get a bank account and a credit card without my husband's permission. Did you know that women here in the States were not allowed to like open their own credit cards until like 1973?
Oh, wow.
I couldn't believe that when I heard that, but
Wow.
it's the truth. It's like you have to have your husband's or your father's permission or something.
That's
Like
nuts.
that whole, you've seen Mad Men?
Yeah.
Have you
Oh,
seen Mad
no, I
Men?
haven't. It is on my list. It's definitely on my
It's
list to
so
go
good,
through.
and
Yeah.
it's very accurate.
Oh, really?
With the
Wow.
way these you know men in the advertising industry in the late 50s and 60s, the way they treated women, and it was all my stepmother worked in that industry around that time. She's like, oh yeah, it was very much like that. It's like, but things have gotten a lot better for women, I think.
Well, and
And
look at the movie industry, right? And what's the big shakeups that were happening in the
sure,
movie industry with,
right. Me
the
too.
hashtag Me Too sort of following and all of
Right.
that sort of thing. So, yeah, look, I think it's definitely getting better. I do think sometimes us poor women do confuse men and put them into confusing situations where they go, well, what do you want? What do you want us to do?
Right.
You want us to open the doors, then you don't want us to open the doors, and then you want us to do the chivalry thing, and and you want us to look after you and do X, Y, and Z, but then you don't.
Right.
You want equal pay,
Right.
and so yeah, like I do think sometimes we do give confusing messages.
Probably do. We probably do. But I am very gracious when a man will hold the door open for me. And if there's a man behind me, I'll hold the door open for
Exactly.
him. I mean,
Equal
it's
rights.
just being
Yeah.
kind. It's just being nice to other
Yeah.
people. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman.
No.
I don't care about that.
Yeah, I think, and I have to agree with you, but it's like
It's about not being a dick.
yeah, exactly right. I think that's right. And it's not about going, oh, you don't need to hold the door open for me if a bloke holds the door.
Of
I mean, it's
course.
like Jesus, like that's the most confusing message. They're just being
I know,
polite. They're
I
just treating
know.
you like a
Yes.
human being, right? Doesn't matter whether
Correct.
you're a
Correct.
woman or a man or whatever. Like they would hold the door open no matter what sex you are.
That's right.
So yeah,
That's
no,
right.
I know. Confusing times that we live in. It's all good. It's all good.
They are, but it's interesting too.
Yeah, yeah. So oh, and I know we've talked about this to a certain extent, but like regarding talking about romantic or sexual relationships, I mean, like, at what age do you start to discuss those? Because they seem to be getting younger and younger. Like
Well, they're going to see it on TV most likely, right? But of course, as parents, we still have the right to monitor what our kids watch and read, and it's like it's our job as parents, I think, not the libraries or
no, I
schools should
agree.
not
I
be banning
agree.
books or anything. It's like it's up to us to be in charge of
Yeah,
that stuff.
and it's also
So,
sorry, go on.
well, what's funny is that on IMDb, they have like these parental advisory things now as part of a show or a movie. And the movies from the 80s, like that I watched that were PG, there's like a lot of inappropriate stuff in there now that my kids don't want my granddaughter to watch, like Ghostbusters or something. There's some sexual scenes in there. And I just always thought Ghostbusters was a fun
Well,
movie.
see, I have to say the biggest shock for me was I probably watched Grease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Grease.
I was in high school, I think, when that actually came out, and I went to see it in the theater, like in the early 80s.
So I don't know, I'm trying to think. Early 80s, I probably was about 10, right?
Okay.
And I saw it then when it came out, right?
Right.
Thought it was just a musical, right? Singing and dancing and all of that
Yeah.
malarkey. Then I watched it
But
like,
it's about,
oh my God, I watched it 2-3 years later, right?
Sure.
And I was like,
sure.
When I was more obviously, sexually savvy, and I went, oh my God, this thing is disgusting, right?
I know.
It
She thinks she's pregnant.
Yes.
They're all
right. And it was all,
they're all having sex.
Exactly.
They're bullying her because
Innuendo,
she's not having sex.
innuendos,
exactly.
all of those sort of things. And I went, oh my God.
But my brain didn't
connect
Claire.
with these things.
No, me neither. I didn't catch that when I watched it the first time. That's so funny.
No,
I did not. But
and so I wonder whether, and I don't, but I don't. But also, we have to be very, very careful about the messaging around sex with children, in the fact that certain ways that women and men are treated within movies, right, could then blueprint an impression on their mind of, oh, that's how you treat a girl, right?
Yeah.
And that's that,
absolutely.
right? And that's not how you treat a girl. And that's how boys treat girls. So,
Right.
So I think.
So that's why I guess if there's a movie that your son wants to watch and you watch it with him, right? And then you have the conversation. I think communication is just so important in so many things.
My biggest concern is, like, he loves Marvel and he loves DC and all of that. And to me, they're very violent, right? So that's my biggest concern is he sees this violence and it's okay, it's a movie, Mum. And I'm like, well, actually, no. What the violence is you're seeing on the movie, right? If you saw that in real life, would be pretty shocking, right? And because it's just a movie, right? And they disassociate the actual shockingness of that violence, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, then it's sort of justified as such. I don't know. I'm sure I should maybe get a psychologist on here to talk to us about violence and sex within movies and porn, because I know, like,
and how it affects kids.
Yeah. Because, man, it's just.
Well, there have been a lot of studies on about, violent video games too. Of course,
yeah, like he doesn't play any of those. So, well, I say he doesn't play any of those. He's on Roadblocks, but I've tried to restrict it so that he doesn't. Yeah, he's sort of 9. He's around the age. I've blocked the age to about 9 because the stuff that's 12 plus is
more mature, huh?
So it's pretty full on, and definitely no. What's it called?
The first person shooter thing.
Yeah, but also that other one where they break into cars and there's
Grand Theft Auto.
Yes. Oh my God, what was that? That was a bit of a you either kill the prostitute or you pay her money. And I'm like, what the?
My gosh.
Like, Jesus Christ, right? I'm going.
I don't know if my sons ever played that. I know they like the zombie games and stuff. And it's like, okay.
Zombie,
But
no, Grand Theft Autos are full on
Yeah.
And I mean, I would think that you would go, okay, this is a game, right? So it's not like you wouldn't do this in real life, but.
Right.
I don't know.
But who knows?
Who knows? Because I suppose it's normalizing all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, but I think there have been studies that, just because kids play violent video games, it doesn't mean that they're going to be violent.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
I don't know. I will get somebody on who's done studies on this, and we will.
That'd be good.
Talk to them about it.
Find out.
Talk to them about it. Oh my God, we could go down a whole different avenue. Now because you've got your daughter and you've got a son as well, haven't you?
I have two
Two
sons and a
sons. That's
daughter.
right. So,
Yes.
like, did you find a big difference between your sons and daughters, like regarding
Relationships?
how they? Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, it's like my oldest son, he's 32 now, and he's been married since he was 21 years old. And his father and I, um, were a little concerned because they were so young. They were both 21 when they got married. But they're doing great, and they have the two little girls, and they're very happy.
And that's all you'd want, really, isn't it? That's
Of
all you want for
course,
your
of
kids.
course. My daughter is in a committed relationship now with a good guy, not the other guy, but
She had a
she's
few lessons to learn along the way,
yeah,
it would
she
seem.
did,
Yeah.
yeah. But she just turned 29 in January, and yeah, she's taken her time with that. But she, like you said, she had some lessons she needed to learn, and
But do you think it's society and what society paints on girls as opposed to boys, though?
I
Like
don't
it is
know.
within the relationship, right? Because like
Yeah,
I've been in several relationships splits, and my son now is from a separated family, right?
right,
Your
right.
children are from a separated family, right?
Yes,
But
sure.
and I know we say statistically children who come from divorced families are more likely to get divorced, but then
Right.
also if you look at the statistics regarding like 1 in 3 marriages roughly end
Yeah,
in
and in
divorce, right?
divorce.
So it's quite a big statistic anyway, right?
Yeah, it
So
is.
is it that it's not so much that it's divorce relationships, it's just society's expectations on those relationships.
Yeah, I think
Like
so.
girls do this, boys have to do this. And we've
Yeah,
still got those stereotypical, although it's improved, we still have those stereotypical ideas.
we do. We do. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't really see those stereotypes with my kids as
Okay.
much.
Okay.
I don't
No,
think
that's
I
fair.
do.
No,
And
that's fair.
my daughter spent more time living with her father than with me when she was a teenager.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Now we live very close to each other. We live like just 3 blocks away in the same neighborhood. And I talk to her every day, but she was happy living with him. And for a little while, it kind of bothered me, but then I realized there's nothing wrong with this. We still have a good relationship and she's happy. And I think it's very good for daughters to have a close relationship with their fathers. I think that's good.
And I think, well, I've got, yeah, no, you're okay. It's, I've got I had quite a close relationship with my dad when I was growing up,
That's
more
good.
so than my mum. But it's sort of I have a really good relationship with my mum as well. Shame,
Yeah.
but like poor
Yeah.
mum. Yeah. So, and I would always tend to tell mum first and go, "Don't tell dad."
Okay.
Don't
I
tell
used
dad.
to
But I
do
knew
that
she'd
too.
tell dad. I mean, she never
Yeah.
kept anything from my dad, but and I
Sure.
sort of go, don't tell
Sure.
dad yet or whatever. Um, but yeah,
That's
because I had
great.
to like
That's great.
prepare myself for the explosion that was my father with some situations that I was like,
Yep.
oh, dad's not going to take this well.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
I remember.
yeah.
Now, my youngest son, he's still figuring himself out, which is fine. He's the one who had cancer. I think we talked about this because you have a brother who had cancer too,
Yes,
right?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes. That's
so
right.
he's still going through a little bit of chemo treatment, but
But
it's very
how
tail
old is
end.
he?
He's going to be 25 in May, almost
Yeah.
25.
So he's a
He's a
baby.
grown up.
Yeah. Mind
Yeah.
you, like your other son settled down at 21, right? So I would have said
Yeah.
he's a baby. I would have been going, oh, I don't know if
Well,
you want to be tying yourself, but it's worked
no, no,
out.
no, no. He's living in Seattle right now.
Wow. Okay.
So that's fine. He's doing well on his own. Um, I think ultimately kids need to figure a lot of this stuff out on their own. We can try as parents to guide them. Of course, that's our job, right? Um, but I always wish that they would take my advice a little bit more seriously. But it's okay. They don't. I didn't listen to my mother either when I was very young, you know. What do you know? What do you know,
I don't
Ma?
even listen to her now.
There you go.
There's a couple of times she's given me advice in the last few weeks, and I've gone, yeah. Don't need your advice at the moment, Mum. Just need you to listen to me.
Right.
And so, yeah, poor old dear, because she's sort of going, well, you know, what you need to do is X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, no, I don't. I'll
No.
figure it out. I just need to
Right.
get this out of my, and it's quite bizarre as a woman. I think you sometimes, processing is not we don't do very good processing in our heads. Well, I don't anyway. I'm not going to tar every woman with this brush, but I don't really process very well so I have to get it out to somebody, and then it seems to figure itself out.
Yeah.
It's almost like I have to get it
helps.
out of my body.
Exactly.
To then put the jigsaw puzzles in place.
Right.
But
you don't want the person to fix it for you. You just want to, right.
It's almost like I verbally have to spew out jigsaw puzzle pieces. Yep. And then once they're out of my body, I can go, oh, yeah, that's how it needs to go.
I get that.
And that's it. But men don't. They have their jigsaw puzzle pieces in their body.
Inside, yes.
Yeah, which is interesting because then dealing with my son with his jigsaw puzzle pieces are in his body, definitely. And sometimes he just goes, just stop, Mum, just stop, because I'm trying to help him. Yeah. And you have to sort of go, okay, well, when you're ready, come and talk to me. And
right.
But going through the relationship stuff is going to be a bit of a minefield.
Yeah.
How did you cover it with your kids, though? Like, did you have sit-down conversations with them, or did you just...
I tried, and that didn't work very well to have a sit-down conversation.
Because they were just like, stop, Mum, just stop.
Yeah, pretty much.
Don't want to hear this.
Yeah.
Right. So it's then just being there for them when everything goes.
Yes.
Well, they have to ask a question, I suppose.
It's the asking the questions, but it's also the, kind of finding teachable moments when you're not really trying. I think those are very helpful.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I definitely think
opportunities will present themselves.
Yeah. And it's just actually picking up on those, I suppose, and recognizing them.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and moving forward. So look, you've written a book, haven't you? A relationship guide for teens. It's not for the parents, it's for teens, right?
Well, yes, it is for the teens. Yes.
So as a parent, if my son was a teenager, like I could get this book and just give it to him and say, here you go, just read it.
Sure. Yeah. And hopefully he'll take one or two tips, right?
Yeah. Take a few tips from it. And so is your book, is it available like all on the usual places? Like,
yes, it's on Amazon.
Yeah. Okay. So it's on Amazon and places like that. If people want to like look at more or find out more about you, where do they go to find you?
So my website is Motina Books, MOTINA books.com.
Motina Books.
And yes, that's everything you ever wanted to know about me, and the publishing that I do for other authors, as well as the books that I've written too.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And I've got one final question for you. What book would you suggest to my listeners and why? And it cannot be one of your own books.
No, I would never do that.
We would suggest The Relationship Guide for Teenagers of Divorced Parents.
There you go.
But yeah, no. So what book?
There's an author that I've been reading a lot lately, and her name is Diane Chamberlain. And I really like her because she'll take she writes historical fiction, but it's not long ago historical. It's like recent history in the United States, like the civil rights in the 60s, things that happened in the South. There was something called the Scope Project that I didn't even know about. And it was when they would have college students from the northern U.S. come down to the southern U.S. and help Black Americans register to vote, because it was so difficult for them to register to vote. Legally, they were allowed to, But these small towns, there was so much racism that they were not really being allowed to, if that makes sense. So, I mean, and her novels are just fascinating. And then there was that one was called I think The House Down the Street, The House at the End of the Street. And then there was another one about the 1940s and 50s where the government, like state government, would decide which women should be able to breed or not. And they would perform these involuntary hysterectomies on them.
Wow. So a bit like The Maiden's Tale, is it? The Maiden's Tale?
Oh, The Handmaid's Tale?
Handmaid's Tale.
Not quite.
So certain people could breed and certain people couldn't. Is that sort of?
Well, it was like, this person does not have a high enough IQ.
Oh, wow.
So it was like that. And that really happened.
Wow.
This form of eugenics really happened. But again, I never learned about this kind of thing in school. Why would they teach that? Like the dark history. They don't want to teach that, but I think it's important to learn the not so pleasant parts of our past to make sure that we don't repeat them.
Yeah, exactly. Make those mistakes again as such.
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Diane Chamberlain, she writes really good books. I like her a lot.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Look, Diana, thank you for coming on the podcast again and talking to us about your relationship guide for teens.
Thanks for having me.
I love talking to you. It's great. It's like so easy
fun
to talk to you.
Thank you. I agree. We have fun talking together.
Yeah. Mind you, it's a bit of a counselling session for me today, but that's okay. That's all right. I'm sure my listeners have heard half of it anyway, so that's okay. It's all good. It's all good. So look, thank you again. And are you going to be writing any more books?
No, not coming up.
Just publishing
I'm working on
more.
Publishing other people's books.
Yeah, no, that's fair
I
enough.
don't have a book in me right now.
No, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work.
It is, yeah.
So have you got any good books? What are you publishing at the moment? Have you got any good books coming through at the moment?
Yeah, I do have some good ones coming out. One of my authors is a woman who's going to be 79 this year. And 2 years ago, she just sold everything and moved to Mexico. And she's come back. She spent about a year in Mexico. And but she wrote a romantic suspense novel loosely based on that, about a woman who does something similar. And it's coming out in May. And it's just really neat because we want to encourage women who are a bit older that, your life doesn't have to end just because you're getting older, and you can still do very fun and interesting things and have an adventure. Yes,
I agree with you. It's life is not over at 50 apparently. So
exactly.
No, exactly. And I think when you get older, you have more privilege to be able to go, well, I'm just going to do what I like doing. I don't want to do the stuff that I don't like doing. So wow. Okay.
I think so too.
So when's that coming out?
That's coming out in May. It's called Answering the Call.
Okay. And people can go to your website and have a look at. There we go. We've got another book. We've got another author and another book that you've suggested. So that's good. No, cool.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. That's great. So if people want to know like what books you publish for different people, then
that's all on my website.
Go to your website as well. Yeah.
And I just very recently published one it's a ghost story set in 1850s Louisiana.
Oh my gosh.
And that was a really good one. It's not scary. Some parts are funny and some parts are really heartbreaking, but that was fun too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll definitely have a look at that and see.
I like the books I publish.
Yeah. Well, and I suppose and that's your privilege being a publisher, isn't it? Because you can publish what you like.
What I like. Exactly.
Yeah. No, exactly. Well, look, I will let you get on and go off and do what you need to do.
This sounds good.
And yes, thank you again for coming on board.
Thank you, Claire. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you would like to hear more, please hit subscribe wherever you like to hear podcasts. If you would like to support us further, share this episode with your friends and family. And finally, drop us a review on iTunes, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, and ideas. It all helps me to understand and produce awesome content you want to hear just like this. If you want to check out our past episodes, write to us, appear on the podcast, or for links, resources, and show notes, go to our website, www.strongsingleandhuman.com. We are also on all the usual social media platforms, Insta, Facey, and Twitter. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Be kind to yourself, and remember, no one is perfect. We're all just putting one foot in front of the other and doing our best. I'm Claire Martin, and you've been listening to the Strong, Single and Human podcast.